Good evening and welcome to Front Page on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. So if you want to understand where AI is headed, who controls it, where it runs, and who pays for it, well, the stories tonight matter. Here are the headlines. OpenAI launches dedicated ChatGPT health and study mode to capture the trillion-dollar healthcare and education markets, aiming to become the essential operating system for daily life while justifying its massive $1.4 trillion infrastructure gamble. Beijing prepares conditional approval for Nvidia's H200 chips, while the US tech giants counters with a strict 100% upfront payment policy to secure $54 billion in orders. Infosys partners with Cognition to deploy Devin worldwide, bringing autonomous AI software agents into enterprise delivery, operations, and engineering workflows at global scale. And finally, Hyderabad-based TakeMe2Space raised $5 million to build India's first orbital data centers. Their satellites MOI-1 launches this week on ISRO's PSLV C-62 to process AI workloads directly into space.
We'll have access to medical care that is better than what the president receives right now.
So don't go to medical school.
Yes, pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you, but I would say that applies to any form of education. It's not like I do it for social reasons.
Yeah.
You're not going to medical school.
If you want to hang out with like-minded people, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, people are still going to want to be connected with people.
Everyone.
Good evening. So if Elon Musk is right, school as we know it changes. Hospitals as we know them change. The two most expensive things in modern life, getting smart and staying alive, could be the first to get disrupted. Today, OpenAI didn't just launch a feature, they fired a missile, which is aimed directly at the trillion-dollar inefficiencies of our doctor's office. This is Front Page by AIM Network. Before we break down the narrative war, please smash that like and subscribe button. Now that you're warmed up, let's get into it. First, the money. As they say, follow the money. Musk talks about moonshots. OpenAI talks about survival. But you know what? No one is mentioning the brutal financial reality. HSBC estimates OpenAI has committed nearly $1.4 trillion in compute capacity for the next decade. Between now and 2030 alone, $792 billion. And when, of course, we compare that to their revenue, only about $20 billion a year. That's barely 1.4% of the bill they just signed up for. And if they hit a massive $200 billion in revenue by 2030, that is, of course, the best case scenario, there is still a $207 billion funding gap. Partners like Oracle and SoftBank have taken on $96 billion in fresh debt just to feed these models. So, how do you pay for a $1 trillion brain? You don't do it with coding assistants. You do it by becoming essential to every human on the planet. You need enterprise adoption. You need schools. You need hospitals. You need ChatGPT health. So, what actually was introduced this week? ChatGPT health, which has transformed it from being not just a chatbot anymore, but a dedicated encrypted space. A separate lab, separate memory, separate rules. And it connects securely to your life. So if you're in the United States, it links to medical records via a partner called Be Well. It talks to Apple Health, MyFitnessPal, Peloton. And here is a very important disclaimer, that is not Dr. GPT writing prescriptions. OpenAI is very clear, designed to support, not replace, clinicians. And let us understand, what can this new platform deliver? Here it is. It translates confused lab results into plain English. It prepares questions before you see a doctor. It tracks your sleep and cholesterol trends. And more crucially, health chats are not used to train their models. Privacy is the bottom line. But why move into health? Well, because you're already doing it. OpenAI's data shows 230 million people globally ask health questions every week, 40 million people a day, 5% of all traffic on the platform. The demand is screaming. And in the United States, 70% of people think the healthcare system is in crisis. And you know what? They're absolutely right. People are skipping doctors because, well, they're broke. In places which are 30 minutes from care, also referred to as hospital deserts, ChatGPT is already the first line of defense. We had knowledge, of course, of this about 2 years ago. OpenAI is slowly turning into a healthcare company. We had mentioned this. First, it was introduced for radiology summaries. Now, it's the interface between you and a broken system. But they are not just focusing on your medical files. No, they are actually focused on your textbooks. Yes. And they're, of course, achieving this by building a parallel stack for education while health launches. ChatGPT for teachers, a secure workspace, unlimited GPT 5.1. Teachers can turn a textbook into a 20-day plan or generate graded examples. It's free for US K-12 teachers till the end of 2027. And for students, they have study mode, which is truly a game changer. It uses Socratic questioning. It guides you. It acts like a tutor, not a cheat sheet, which pretty much means it does not just give you the answer. Elon's vision is becoming a product direction. One AI, your personal doctor, your personal tutor, available 24/7. Which brings us to the question which I'm pretty sure you all are already thinking about, which is this the end of doctors and teachers? No, not at all. But it is the end of paying humans to do robotic work. AI explains the insurance fine print. AI preps the lesson plan. AI tracks the diet, which makes the information layer of these industries basically free. But AI isn't holding your hand in the ICU. It isn't managing the trauma of a bullied teenager. Hospitals and schools don't disappear. But their business models are about to dramatically change. For our Indian viewers, health is rolling out globally, but the deep record integration is US only for right now, which, of course, gives our regulators a window. We get to watch the experiment with a very keen focus before we become the subjects ourselves. And in conclusion, the bottom line, here it is, the front page take. So to justify a $1.4 trillion bill, OpenAI cannot just be a website you visit for coding help. It needs to be the operating system of your life. It needs the things you rely on most, which is learning and healing. So if they pull this off, the first industries to truly change won't be the arts. It will be the two institutional systems we complain about the most. And of course, needless to say, OpenAI is betting the house on it. The question is, should we trust them with our file? And I'd like to say this right now, pause and say this before I ask and request for your comments. Since we started this news with Elon Musk, I would like to say this. Mr. Musk, if you are watching, please fix the horrible feature which has been introduced on Grok. That being said, there is Front Page by AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe. Think AI, think ChatGPT Health, think AIM. Good evening. Only 24 hours ago, reports said China told its tech giants, halt, stop buying Nvidia's H200. The market panicked. But the reality, it's not a ban, it's a filter. New reports confirm Beijing is preparing to approve H200 imports this quarter. But there are guardrails. If you are the Chinese military, banned. Sensitive government agency, banned. State-owned enterprise, don't even ask or think about it. But if you're a commercial tech giant, you can buy. But the catch? Beijing is pulling a bundle deal. Regulators are deciding on a domestic ratio, which means you want Nvidia's H200? Perfect. Very nice. But first, please show us your receipt for Huawei. Show us how many Byron chips you bought. I guess with this move, They aren't blocking the door. All they're doing is they're actually charging a cover charge. And the currency is domestic patriotism. So while China plays regulator, Nvidia is playing hardball. The green team is done being the nice guy. The new demand for Chinese buyers: 100% cash, upfront, no refunds, no cancellations, no, oops, I changed my mind on the configuration. Just put the money on the table or put up collateral. Wow, that is aggressive. But why, you ask? Because Nvidia has PTSD. Last year, the Trump administration banned the H20. Nvidia had to write down $5.5 billion. They got burnt. Jensen Huang is making sure he doesn't get burnt twice. Nvidia is saying, you want the chips? You take the risk. If the law changes tomorrow, that's your problem. We keep the cash. And now, of course, it is time to talk about the scale, because the numbers are staggering. Reports show Chinese firms have placed orders for over 2 million H200 chips. When we do the math, at $27,000 per chip, that is $54 billion in demand, which is roughly 3 times Nvidia's current global inventory for this chip. As you can see, it is a demand shock. And Nvidia is scrambling. The first batch arrives before Chinese New Year. TSMC is being asked to crank the machines for 2026. The question which comes to mind is, why the desperation? Why not just use Huawei's Ascend 910C or Byron or Moore threads? That is because they aren't there yet. Not for large-scale frontier training, and China knows this. They need the H200 to build the models. Qwen, DeepSeek, Yi, and all they're doing is just buying time. So what is the front page take? What are we actually looking at? Well, it's this. China did not ban Nvidia, and Nvidia did not regain full access. We are seeing a strategic friction unfold. China will buy the H200 for commercial speed, but it will force those same companies to fund the domestic rivals. So in a way, it is feeding the enemy to fund the home team. And Nvidia, well, they get the sale, but they pay a 25% revenue sharing fee to the US government, and they operate with a gun to their head regarding regulations. The takeaway is quite plain. We are officially in a dual stack world. One American, one Chinese. Neither is fully open, neither is fully closed. Both sides are terrified of dependence, and both sides are designing policy around that very fear. Which brings me to your thoughts. I'd love to know in the comments below if Nvidia's cash upfront rule is fair play, or is it just panic? This front page. Like, share, subscribe. Think AI, think Nvidia, think AIM. Good evening. For 5 years, the narrative has been loud, and on top of that, it has been vicious. Indian IT is dead. Generative AI will cook the service companies. Why hire Infosys or service companies when you can just prompt an AI? The story was simple. Silicon Valley builds the tech, Bangalore gets replaced, end of story. Except reality just punched that narrative in the face. The startups everyone thought would kill Indian IT, they aren't hunting Infosys. They are actually begging Infosys to sell their product. And here is the news that broke the internet today. Infosys, the giant with 3.3 lakh employees, has partnered with Cognition to deploy Devin, the world's first fully autonomous AI software engineer. And they're deploying it for real, not just testing the waters. Internal engineering teams, they get Devin. Client delivery, Devin is there. Managed service inside the Fortune 500, say hello to Devin, because Devin is running the show. Infosys is plugging Devin directly into Topaz. That's their massive AI fabric. They are fusing infrastructure, data models, and autonomous agents into one stack. And the internet's reaction? Pure chaos. People are realizing that which didn't die, which just became the distribution layer for the entire global AI economy. And now it is time to analyze the narrative behind the news. Why is Cognition, the darling of Silicon Valley, shaking hands with a 40-year-old service giant? Quite simply, for distribution, period. Cognition sells one Devin, Infosys can deploy 10,000 Devins by next Tuesday. Startups don't have 40 years of trust. They don't have the SLAs. They don't have the CIO's phone number at the world's biggest banks. Guess who does? Infosys does. Infosys already runs the back end of the global economy: banking, insurance, retail, energy. So if you want to sell AI to the enterprise, you don't knock on the front door. You plug into Infosys, and then Infosys takes you to 500 clients overnight. It is the ultimate distribution system which keeps compounding the momentum. And to clarify, Infosys didn't sign this today. They've been running Devon secretly for 6 months, and the data is terrifyingly good. Complex COBOL migrations done in record time. Legacy JCP servlet conversions accelerated. Tech debt deleted. Engineering pods didn't just improve, they doubled their output, which is why Infosys is repositioning. So the Q3 results are coming up on January 14th, and please expect the narrative to shift. They are telling the market, we are not competing with AI, we are scaling with AI. And now, I would of course like to address the 22-year-old engineer who's watching this. Hello. So if you're a junior coder, the ground just moves beneath your feet. Devin is not a chatbot. It is an agent. It writes, it tests, it debugs, it deploys, which means routine coding is dead. We, of course, had mentioned this to all of you weeks ago regarding Infosys offering 21 lakh rupees salaries for AI specialists, which should not be misunderstood as generosity, but should be interpreted as survival. Two Indias are forming inside IT. India A, you control the agents, you get the salary spike. India B, you write routine code, you get displaced. I guess that brings our focus to, well, expect layoffs, expect restructuring. The assembly line is pretty much closing. The hybrid era of human plus agent is opening. So what happens next? 14th of January, Infosys Q3 earnings. This partnership will dominate every analyst question. How fast does this scale? What happens to the margins? If Infosys proves it can act as the carrier for agentic AI, the stock narrative changes overnight. Which, of course, now brings us to the front page take. AI is not destroying Indian IT. No. AI is absorbing Indian IT into the global stack. Cognition builds the brain, Infosys provides the body, and the clients provide the money. This is the new world. Human plus agent plus enterprise fabric. Infosys is shipping it. The question is, are you ready to work alongside it? This front page by AIM Network. Think AI, think Infosys, think Devin. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe. Well, today on Front Page, we are delving into one of the most audacious ideas coming out of India's space tech ecosystem. This is the vision of Hyderabad-based startup TakeMe2Space. They have just raised $5 million to build India's first infrastructure where AI models don't run on Earth, they run in space. TakeMe2Space is focused on building AI-enabled satellite infrastructure and orbital compute platforms, including an AI lab in space designed to provide real-time compute and data services from low Earth orbit. We are, of course, thrilled to share with you that history is being written as we speak. Their first satellite, the MOI-1, is launching this week aboard ISRO's PSLV C-62 mission. It's a 14 kg AI lab in orbit, with customers already waiting to process data in zero gravity. Their core thesis is radical but simple. Space should be as accessible as the internet. If you can log into AWS, you should be able to log into a satellite. And well, to tell us how he plans to turn the vacuum of space into the world's next great computer room, we are joined by the man behind the vision. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome Ronak Kumar Samantre, founder and CEO of TakeMe2Space. Ronak, a big warm welcome to you on Front Page, and first of all, a big congratulations to you and your entire team at TakeMe2Space for the funding.
Thank you so much, Sudhi, for this opportunity. I'm glad to talk to you.
Wonderful. So let's just get right into it, Ronak. So before we start talking about the technology, let's talk about the funding. Yes, that's the big one. You've just closed a $5 million round led by Chirate Ventures. So the question is, beyond the headlines, what does this capital actually let you physically achieve, build, and launch in the next 12 months? That wasn't well possible yesterday.
Fair. See, my pre-seed capital actually enables me to by this year end, we'll be at 200 watts of compute capacity in orbit, and that's why we don't call ourselves a data center yet, right? That's why we call it an AI lab, because with 200 watts of compute, you can't really call yourself a data center. With this $5 million, our aim is to have 6 satellites in orbit with a total compute capacity of 5 kilowatts, right?
Nice.
Which sort of enables our customers to have more real-time processing and more powerful compute accessible from the orbit. So this 5 million is really crucial for us to take the next jump in our execution roadmap to get to the orbital data centers.
Okay. So the core thesis, Ronak, is that satellites shouldn't just be cameras observing Earth. They should be computers processing data. So why is this the right moment, Ronak, for that particular shift? And what specifically changed in the technology landscape to make orbital compute possible now rather than, for example, years ago?
Sure. Great question. I'll answer the first one first. Right now, if you look at our aim is to get to pure compute only satellites and have pure data centers in space. Now, given today's unit economics behind launch cost, behind cost of solar cells, and some other factors, we really cannot compete with existing terrestrial compute providers. And that's the reason, instead of building a data center, if I may say, we are building laptop with a camera embedded, because that's where the customer sees value. So when I attach a high performance compute, which is a GPU, which if you look at terrestrially, everybody knows how to build an AI model on a GPU. So instead of telling customers that, hey, I have a proprietary, a space hardened compute on orbit, I have a GPU that everybody knows, Nvidia GPU we use in orbit, attached to a camera. And a value prop is for the Earth observation customers that, hey, why do you even need to download data? It's like looking at a business MIS, right? You look at your MIS every single day. Only when you find an anomaly, look at the cash flow statements. Similarly, what we believe is more and more private companies should use GIS analytics and use GIS-based inferencing without having to pay for that heavy imagery data getting downloaded back to Earth. And that brings down the overall cost of GIS analytics by a factor of 5 to 8. And that's the business we're trying to sort of build our journey upon. That's what the camera will.
And as far as the second aspect of the question was concerned, which in terms of what's changed now recently, in terms of which was not possible, let's say, years ago.
A lot, right? So if you look at the one key driver for the orbital data centers, in orbit manufacturing, all this falls under the umbrella of in orbit economy, right? We are doing something in orbit which is creating value for the customers to pay. Now, all this has become viable because the launch costs have dived down over the last 10 years, right? Now, ISRO gives you a $10,000, SpaceX gives you a $6,000 per kg. So that with the reduction of launch cost, these new businesses are becoming viable, right? And it's going to go further down with the heavier rockets coming, like in India, Ethereal is trying to solve it. In US, you have SpaceX with Starship, you have New Glenn with Blue Origin. So the rocket launch costs are further going to go down, and which is what is the key driver for such kind of business model to come in. That's number one. Number two, our mill grade, the industrial revolution that has happened over so many years, the mill grade components, they're already rated for the temperature range for the components, which matches exactly what you expect in LEO, low Earth orbit, right? So in terms of those components which are compliant with the temperature range that you experience in space is already available to you. And great part about thing is our country, our prime minister is pushing the semiconductor revolution. I think it's the right time, right? Because the semiconductors that are going to be built will be under this temperature bracket, and hence it'll make it further easy for Indian startups to get access to the components that we need to build a satellite much faster and at a much affordable pricing when that revolution happens in India.
It's fascinating, Ronak, that you've shed light so simply to make it very easy to understand and absorb for all of us. Your first satellite, MOI-1, is launching as an AI lab in orbit. most people assume that you send data down to process it. But for a customer in defense or agriculture, Ronak, what is the killer advantage of doing it up there? One. And what problem does processing data in space solve that an Earth-based server simply cannot?
So, okay, as the last one, what it solves is a near real-time access to the inference rather than a delayed access. So I'll tell you, let's say during stressful times, our border with our border sharing nation is 3,000 kilometers long. When you capture the data, it's 300 gigabytes of data. Even if you're downloading 300 gigabytes of data immediately after the border gets over, it takes 30 minutes. That means from the moment the data was captured to the data being available for you to process itself to 30 minutes. And today, during crisis times, the time to decision is the key factor. So if you could process the inferences right in orbit and downlink the inference, because inference will be few megabytes or few kilobytes, right? About what are the movements happening across the border with a border sharing nation, or what is the health of your, let's say, 5,000 acres of potato farm. What's the health? Because that's just a number, right? Instead of downloading the heavy imagery, paying for the imagery and then doing the analytics. Or if you're a hedge fund, what is the congestion today at the canal on the seaways? Now, the use cases which focus on real-time access or the faster truth is where our business model applies. That, hey, don't download the data, download just the inferences. That will help you get the truth faster and get it at a much, much, much lesser cost because you're not paying for this heavy data. Now, the caveat in that is we are not a surveillance company. If you see an anomaly, of course, you have to back it up with data, right? And that's when you can, of course, go ahead and buy from a EO company the data and then validate whether the inferences and the data match with each other or not.
Fair point. Of course, before I move on, I have to obviously check with you. How are you feeling in terms of the launch? And by the way, when is the launch?
So the launch is scheduled for 12th Jan. I mean, I get speechless. So watching the rocket go, it's like the entire sky vibrates, right? Like, okay, I'll show you. So this was our first thing we launched to orbit, right? It's called RSIM, where we tested our radiation shielding material that we built so that we can take data center grade GPUs and make them work in orbit, right? So this was the first load. And yeah, there were tears in the eyes. And the first time you see a rocket literally going in front of eyes, it's the entire sky that vibrates. The rocket goes first, and then the vibration you feel. It's inexplicable, if I may say so.
And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a team event. Every one of you, in terms of team TakeMe2Space, will be there. And any special little moment that's been planned or anything which is specific to the launch which has been planned?
It's mixed emotions. So of course the team will be there, but we are all like fingers crossed. The moment the satellite gets ejected out of this rocket, within 1 hour we need to receive the signal, right? So it's also stressful, like man, launch happened, and now what? Are we getting signal? What happened? So it's mixed. There'll be few people at the ground station and waiting for the signal. We will have momentary happiness, but then that will soon get clouded with the fact that
a lot of stress.
Yeah, signal ke where rocket to humne kaam kar diya, abhi apna satellite ka kaam.
Correct. But of course, we at Front Page want to wish all of you all of the best and more power to you and onwards and upwards forever, literally. Of course, now getting back to the conversation and the deep dive. It sounds elegant, Ronak, but space is genuinely brutal. There is radiation, wild thermal swings, limited power budgets. So the question is, what is the single hardest engineering problem which is standing between you and a fully scalable orbital cloud right now? Is it the hardware durability? Is it the optical links or heat dissipation?
Okay, I just want to correct one thing. Nothing is the single hardest. Everything is an engineering problem, right? You just solve it. Of course, the first is the radiation shielding. How do you prevent yourself from the solar radiations that come through? Because you can't have proprietary space-hardened components in orbit. You want to take components GPUs that customers already know how to use. Customers are not going to rewrite their AI models just because I'm giving compute in orbit. Number one. So radiation shielding is very important. Second, the thermal management, right? We can't be doing active thermal management where we are spending energy to take out heat from the system, right? that misbalances my energy budget. So how do you extract heat? How do you conduct the heat and how do you radiate heat? That's second. The cost factor, the cost of launch, which of course the rocket companies take care, but the cost of the solar cell. Today we pay around $500 to $600 per watt for a gallium arsenide, which is ridiculously high, doesn't make my unit economics work. Why can't we look at silicon solar cells? Of course, they're 19% efficient versus a gallium arsenide, which is 30% efficient. But if you do the right thing on silicon, it can bring down the cost by a factor of 10. Right? Even if it has a rate penalty of factor of 2, it can bring down the cost by factor of 10. Instead of saying $400 or $500, I can spend $40 a watt. So yeah, so these are the, and as you said, OSL, right? You can't have a massive single object doing the compute for you. It has to be distributed computing. That means there have to be multiple satellites talking to each other with the speed of light, which is with laser, right? And hence, how do you get optical link working between you? If you're talking about optical link, how do you get the attitude control? Because when you're pointing at an object at a 5,000 kilometer or 2,000 distance, a 0.1 degree deviation leads to a 1 kilometer error at a 5,000 kilometer distance. So, yeah, so you got to have a complete, I mean, to get to an orbital data center strategy, what I believe is you got to follow, and that's what we are following, a completely vertical integrated stack. And that's what we've done as TakeMe2Space. Everything today that flies in a satellite, in fact, MY1, except for the solar cell and propulsion, everything has been designed and manufactured by us in India, right? And that is
fascinating.
Bringing down the costs of it. Like the satellite of our capability will cost you easily $800,000 or $1 million, and we build it in less than 2 CR.
Wow. Okay, quickly. We are all aware, Ronak, in terms of the crisis that we are facing down here in terms of data centers, land scarcity, massive water usage, and of course, rising energy costs. Up there, we have a cold vacuum and an infinite solar power advantage. So do you believe space will eventually become cheaper, Ronak, than Earth for compute? And what milestones do you need to hit for those economics to change?
It has to, because space is a capex game. Once you put up an asset in orbit, there is no, because, and that's how space as an environment is. Because it's harsh, you can't really go and restart the thing or maintain, do some changes to the thing. So the operation, so you design it in a way, keeping the capex in mind, that the operational cost of maintaining the asset is zero, and that's a fundamental. I would not say it's a fundamental advantage of any business being built around in space. I'm saying circle business around Earth. That whatever you put, it's one-time capex. Like on Leo, the lifespan is, let's say, average 5 years. So you have 5 years to recover the capex, recover the replacement cost, and make profit across, right? So you get 5 years to do that with zero OPEX, right? So hence the key, I think there are 8 companies globally trying to sort of in the orbital data center race. The key is how do you unlock not the orbital data center market directly, but local maximas, right? The smaller artisanal markets, open up them, but have a clear focus on engineering, right? But whatever you're building needs to align to the orbital data center, so that when the unit economics align, the launch cost, the reduction of solar cost, the reduction of the thermal management, whatever strategy we today use, the materials we use, reduction of their cost. Moment that sweet spot happens, we should be ready to scale up to like 5,000 satellites and have at least a 1 gigawatt or a 2 gigawatt compute capacity in orbit.
Fair enough.
We are the ones from India, but yeah.
Fair point. I, of course, wanted to talk to you about this in a way, challenge this particular premise which was set. The Perplexity CEO, Arvind Srinivas, recently argued that powerful on-device AI, which is running on our phones and laptops respectively, is the biggest threat to centralized data centers. So the question is, if our phones become powerful enough, Ronak, to run massive AI models locally, does the demand for space compute disappear? And how do you answer this particular challenge?
I think that's a very obtuse way of looking, acute way of looking at it. The way to see this guy will keep becoming more powerful and more smarter. Why? Because the needs of an edge device, the consumer needs, the compute needs that the consumer today expects on an edge device is also growing.
Yes.
Now, the reason it is growing because now, if you look at any computing tool as asynchronous compute, which the consumer doesn't see, that happens behind the scene, the training of the LLM, the mining of the Bitcoin, the big data analytics, and what the consumer sees the inferenced model, and they interact with the ChatGPT UI or the Perplexity UI, right? Now, because the backend asynchronous compute is becoming so huge, The inference model, the spit out, is also becoming a little bit bigger, right? And hence, let's say over 10 years, those inference models will require a much powerful device, which clearly is an indication that imagine the backend which is spitting out such a large inferencing model. Now, the asynchronous compute required to spit out that model, which is much bigger. So the need for asynchronous compute powering our lives is just going to keep exponentially increasing. Who thought that we're going to have Alexas in our bedroom? Right. Today, I think as a human, wherever we go, we have compute coming along. And that was the thesis behind TakeMe2Space. Our thesis was, if humans were to become spacefaring species, compute has to go along. Of course, now people are talking about orbital data center, but it's a clean, very simple one-to-one thing, right? If humans are going somewhere, compute has to go along, because compute is what makes human efficient. Just because, and that need for more and more compute will always keep going up. That doesn't mean that the back-end compute powering this edge compute will reduce. Both the pies will keep growing. The powerful thing will keep growing.
Very incisive. You already have customers waiting, and interestingly, Ronak, the majority are commercial analytics firms, not just universities or research labs. So which brings me to this. What does that early demand tell you? And are these companies looking for speed, cost savings, as you've mentioned again and again, which is, of course, I believe, a very integral aspect, or a capability they just can't get on the ground?
No, the capability that just can't get on the satellite. Today, if you look at, there are companies like Maxar, Planet, who have these AI models already running on the satellites, right? But you are enslaved for the AI models that they have built. A Planet or a Maxar is not going to allow you to put your AI model on their satellites.
Right.
It is their satellite, their data. They have decided, okay, I need to have cloud filtering algorithm, and I'll download the right data and give you. And of course, they on ground, they have some analytics, of course, software running. But our biggest advantage is we say that our business model, we only own the infrastructure. You bring in your application, and the data and the application is all yours, right? So that gives customer the freedom and the privacy sort of guidelines that they can do whatever compute they want. It is their satellite for that amount of time. So that's one. Second, the advantage or the fact that the whole stack is optimized for inferencing download, and that helps me reduce cost, right? Because it is primarily inference download, not imagery. So because the whole stack is download for inferences, they get near real-time access to the results. Third, the cost. Because it is optimized for inferences and not for imagery, I have components that are not like X-band, KUKA band, or costlier bands, right? So that helps me land, my capex is hence lesser, which helps me land my product at a much affordable pricing than my other competitors in the EO domain who are reliant on the data sales today.
So essentially, it's a great solution that is being provided to the customers, Ronak. It's a great value add, I believe, with the way that you just explained it to all of us. India has set a target of a $44 billion space economy by 2033. Typically, the world looks to the United States or Europe for this kind of heavy infrastructure. So the question is, Ronak, why is India the right place to build the world's orbital compute layer? Is it cost innovation, engineering talent, or the support from ISRO?
I think all of them, because we have the right talent. We with the not the push, I would say, with the support of our government, right? The government, the policies they're making, they literally have opened up the sector, and that was huge when in 2020 that happened. So the support from the government, the access to talent, and third, the program that ISRO has. ISRO has this beautiful program called POEM, which enables, like, this was the first time we built. And if you look at the power and the communication is taken care by the rocket. So you attach it to the PSLV, and the PSLV orbits for 45 days in orbit, and you can validate your business model or your hardware in space. So ISRO also gives you the right experimental platform to sort of test your hypothesis in space at a much lower cost. So yeah, all factors combined. And okay, one more thing. ISRO and InSpace both are conducting this CANSAT competitions, the rocket model competition, which is ensuring that the engineering students that are passing out now from third year, fourth year, they're already exposed to this taxonomy of building satellite, building rockets. So when we are finding talent, they're already aware of the words. They might not have experience of building an orbital satellite, but they know what it takes to build a baby satellite, right? Sure. So there's a lot of tailwinds in the industry, and I think what we do about the tailwinds will make a difference in the future. There are no headwinds, it's all tailwinds right now, and the point is to make a difference.
Nice. Ronak, of course, very quickly, before I wrap this up with you regarding how's the future looking, I really quickly wanted your thoughts on terms of the policy. as far as the private players now being allowed to come in as far as the space tech ecosystem is concerned. How do you feel about that? I mean, I'm pretty sure it would be a great fillip. It has done wonders for Take Me to Space. But what do you feel in terms of the whole ecosystem, and how do you think it'll bloom?
Oh, I have no words. I think it was one of the best space policies in the world. I mean, I think US has a very archaic space policy than compared to the Indian space policy, right? So yeah, it's beautiful. Like you can, when it comes to satellite, I comment on satellites because we're in the satellite segment. You can build a product, ship a product, export a product. You don't need any approvals, right? And that's beautiful. The only authorization that comes in is when you're trying to operate a satellite, and that gives people like me who are not from the space background to go and attempt this space. Otherwise, back in the day before the sector opened up, there were this knowledge wells which लोग थे जो बोलते थे तुम मेरे पास हो मेरे को पता क्या करने का है.
Correct.
When the market is opened up, it gives a level playing field. मेरे को पता भी नहीं है फिर भी मैं attempt कर सकता हूं, right? And that is what is required to leapfrog. You can't have only the experts creating the market, right? You need innovation can happen. Innovation always doesn't happen from the expert. It usually happens from anybody in the industry or from an outsider because they look at things differently. And I think that's what the government has done. They have created a level playing field without any barriers, no approvals required, and that is what the government should do. And they have done the right thing, I believe.
Fabulous. On that note, of course, I'd love to understand from you. If we look back 10 years from now, has space become the world's back-end server? And how does the average person interact with your technology, Ronak, in, let's say, 2035?
Oh, I wish. I mean, people have been entering space. Your GPS, and a lot of this mobile phone powering things are driven by satellites today already, right? It's just that we never saw it because now the cost of launching a space asset reduced. New use cases are going to emerge. Like, for example, why can't a consumer, let's say there is a volcano eruption happening somewhere. Why do you have to wait for a news agency to give me a picture? Why can't I have an app? I just task a satellite and goes and click my own picture. If I'm a storm chaser, let's say I love the eye of the storm. Why do I have to wait for an Earth observation company or a NASA or a ISRO to give me that picture? Why can't I have my own private satellite which I can task to give me the eye of the storm at an affordable price?
Fantastic, right?
Right. So yeah, the aurora. I have myself never seen the auroras, right? But
Neither have I.
And I want my picture that I click. There's a beauty in doing your own thing rather than somebody else's work, right? You get what I'm saying?
Right.
I think that's going to be the next step. Right? In the next 5 years, you will see a lot of this consumer-facing use cases will emerge.
So a lot of more personalization.
Yes. And at affordable pricing. The consumer is not going to pay $200, $500 for that aurora picture. बोलेगा भाग जाओ मैं दूसरा देखता हूँ.
Correct.
$1-2 होगा तो देखेगा. Like it's like Shutterstock, right? You pay that $1 for that royalty-free image, but you're not going to pay $1,000 for that, right? So yeah.
Oh, makes sense. Finally, Ronak, a message that you'd like to give to everyone, because the big day is just around the corner. The launch is happening. The funding has happened. The future looks nice and exciting. A message.
A message. No, if you're an entrepreneur, I think space is an amazing sector to be in. Don't think space is hard. It's a misnomer. I think everybody should attempt. And I'm a software guy who's attempting space. So space is absolutely not hard. Rocket science is easy. Anybody can attempt rocket science. So yeah, you just go behind it. And for TakeMe2Space, please pray that things work as per plan.
Oh, trust me,
there is science and there is a little bit of luck, right? I would never take away luck from it, though I'm an engineer myself. There's 90% hard work. We have done our hard work now. Let's see. Hopefully, we have solved everything that we could think of. And there are no unknown variables. So please pray.
Yeah, we are definitely doing that. All of the positive energy to you. We, of course, would like to thank you, Ronak, from Front Page. Wish you all of the best and your entire team as far as TakeMe2Space is concerned. And onwards and upwards. And of course, this conversation, Ronak, I have to say, was out of this world.
Thank you so much. Glad talking to you, Sudeep.
Wonderful. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the founder of TakeMe2Space, Ronak, a gentleman who is on the precipice of some great things. And we are obviously wishing him, his entire team, and the entire ecosystem, as Ronak had just mentioned, that the policy is a dream policy. It has opened up so many things for people who are thinkers, for people who are adventurous, who want to actually go ahead and take the deep dive. Ronak is encouraging them to do it. And I believe we should, because you never know what might be that one thing that you might stumble upon, which might just change how we think as humans. Of course, wishing everyone again best of luck for the launch. And Ronak, of course, is the man who wants to flip that old English phrase that it's not as difficult as rocket science. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Front Page. Like, share, and subscribe. And of course, we'll see you again. But till then, think AI, think space, think AIM.